What I present to you, in my opinion, is the most important question that I feel that I can ask at the start of 2022. I rely on our collective thoughts and opinions, so please share your comments in the comments with your comments. Share this wide, share it everywhere, so that we can get more minds thinking and asking. Ideally, what I would love would be for this subject to result in a second interview with Benoît Beauséjour, who leads Turbulent in Montreal. Turbulent is working on all of the back end, and he headlined the server meshing segment during this year's CitizenCon. I consider him to be a subject matter expert, and I believe that he understands the limitations and possible solutions better than even Chris might.
Benoît is really working on the dynamic server meshing issue. He's reinventing it. They have to reinvent it. The method in which they have to solve dynamic server meshing, what they've been pursuing now, is defunct, which is what we saw and came to the conclusion of watching CitizenCon. So I would love to see an interview between Noob and Benoît. That would be a really great interview. I think Noob's a straight shooter and he asks some pretty important questions. So I definitely would watch an interview between the two of them. I hope we get something clearer. All we learned at CitizenCon was kind of like a general outline of this new way in which they're trying to solve dynamic server meshing, but I'd like a deep dive into it. I really would. I think Noob would be the perfect person to interview Benoît.
Benoît, mon ami, j'aimerais t'inviter chez moi pour un face-à-face, s'il te plaît. Apporter avec toi mon ami Louis-Simon pour dîner, du vin et une discussion de Star Citizen. Je te remercie. Lag has its implications throughout the game beyond just fleet battles, but to keep the discussion focused, I've decided to use that as the scenario. All parts of the PU will be impacted by these issues. It's come up recently more and more as a discussion topic in the Noobifier Discord, and it's been discussed often during the weekly meetings at the org Enemy Contact. The question is, how can a global-sized player base play from a first-person perspective at the same time on the same server without suffering game-breaking lag? Like we always do in the military, I'm going to say it a second time for emphasis, a global player base at the same time on the same server without lag. How would that be even physically possible? How would that pitch all the way back then even come out during the Kickstarter? What a bold statement. Was it just that it sounded good and it could be addressed in the future as better stuff was developed? It's probably too late now for us to worry about 2013, but the question is something that we as gamers have known since the first time anyone played that wasn't hosted on a LAN. Ping. Ping, right? We used to have LAN parties because we knew the performance was the best, the most competitive, and it was noticeably better. The best game with a ping of 1 millisecond. Everyone connected directly to the game server, and it was always magical. Even when playing Battlefield 3 or 4 online, we would always choose a server for the team based on ping. Good ping, then the number of available slots for the group, then the right game type, then the good map rotation, and it was always in that order. Ping first, and then other considerations. The selection was made, and you'd probably play on that server all night.
I remember LAN parties, man. I miss fucking LAN parties. And you know, some of the best ping I've ever had has come from Battlefield servers. It's the craziest thing that he was showing Battlefield right there. But like in my experience when I played online, a lot of competitive fucking FPS games, some of the best pings I ever had were from Battlefield servers, which is crazy.
Let's do some basic math. In a perfect theoretical environment, light travels in a vacuum in one direction from LA to Sydney in 40 milliseconds and from LA to UK in 30 milliseconds. 40 would be a little bit laggy, but 40 is still fine. Game latency is bidirectional data transfer, so you could double that for a round trip of 80. 80 is pretty bad. I wouldn't play Battlefield on 80 unless I was left with no alternate choice. This theoretical maximum also does not account for the network infrastructure, the switches, the routers, the boosters, the pack priority, your home network, your ISP, your country's infrastructure.
So many variables too. So many fucking variables.
And even Amazon servers. All of that adds tens of milliseconds here and there. That becomes the total lag, and we can see up to 300 or 400. You might remember that Arena Commander worked very well, and it was specifically better when the two pilots fighting a one-on-one were in the same geographic area connected to the closest server. I could actually tell if an opponent was in Europe or Australia based on the increased ghosting, jitter, and unbelievable hit registration. That little bit of extra lag broke the one-on-one. I would take damage and I would rarely see it because it was calculated out of sync. That's not the game code, that's the latency. It's physics based on C, the constant, the speed of light. The TLDR is, even in Arena Commander, lag broke the game on a scale of 1 to 1. So now we can also add in permadeath as a consequence. Let's add in a couple of hundred other living variables and 1,000 or so digital ones. Do you think that permadeath in a game with a low TTK and no ability to really defend yourself is a good game mechanic? That perhaps is a topic for another day, but in a slideshow, dying randomly really just punishes the player. It's funny for the first couple times in an alpha and you can always reset, but it won't be so funny when you lose hours or days of progress just because the opponent is on the other side of the world and the game couldn't decide where things were spatially or temporally. So somehow we need to mitigate this game-breaking situation. The answer is likely area-based shards, but I might be getting ahead of myself and that isn't what was pitched all the way back, but I can see that that's where this is going. If CIG made that announcement, it might be too much salt and too much drama for the community. I don't know what the results of that announcement would be, maybe attempted lawsuits, or perhaps by now the community would be just fine with any progress towards a good playable experience. I'm very concerned that all of these proposed game elements that were pitched in 2013 may not be able to come together in one game at the same time. Global turn-based games? No problem. Local high-paced games? No problem. Global high-paced games? Has that ever worked before? Is that even possible? And there we get the title, Can Chris Deliver? Star Citizen has split its alpha testing servers into 3 regions while they address this curious topic of the larger issue on how to overcome physics. I believe that we will always need to be limited regionally, and I would love the developers to address this specifically sooner than later. Either they know of it and are choosing to not mention it, or they have some secret plan on how to change physics from that little
And that's why I want to see the interview with Benoît and Noob. If anybody's got answers, it seems as if Chris has given Benoît the task of figuring out how to go about solving this fucking major hurdle that's always been in the way. The dynamic server meshing and the ability for all of us to have like low ping levels and have this same experience, no cap, no player cap, all, existing, with literally no latency. It's a very hard thing to fucking promise. And that's why they haven't talked a lot about it. And that's why we haven't heard a lot of talk about it. That's why we're having issues that we've been having for a very long time period. It's a game breaker, and it's something that they've been working on. Is it impossible? No. Is it going to be? It feels impossible, but is it impossible? No. But it's something that there's no answer for yet. There's no answer for it yet. They're working on it. There's no answer for it yet. I mean, I saw that just based upon the presentation that they did in CitizenCon. I mean, in layman's term, there is no answer for it yet, and that's one of the biggest hurdles and one of the biggest reasons for a lot of the gripes that we have as citizens. Frankly, I'm surprised Noob doesn't know that. Like, maybe Noob's so very matter-of-factly that he didn't pick that up, or maybe he's being sarcastic about it and knows it, and that's why he wants an interview with Benoît to kind of press him, for some answers. But they don't have fucking answers on this yet. Don't be fooled. They don't have answers on this yet. They are working on it, and it's going to take a very long time. And for people that are saying, oh, don't worry about it, dynamic server meshing is going to be flushed out and everything will be done at the end of 2022, 2023. I don't think so. I think it's going to take a lot longer for the true definition of what it is that was promised and what was offered to us. I think, with no strings attached bullshit, I think that it's going to take a long time. I think we're looking well into 2023, even farther out. It's a problem. It's a large problem that is being reworked now with Benoît. It's actually being reworked now. The way they were going about it, they didn't have the answer. They went as far as they could go and realized it wasn't the right route. That's why Benoît's on it. They're trying to fucking think it. They're trying to rethink it.
Studio in Montreal. That sounds spicy, but I think it would be great if the community would get some insight here. They've explained in great detail how they plan to share game data and achieve some level of persistence, but they haven't really spoken on how they can send more critical high-speed information.
I mean, they gave us some detail. I wouldn't say great detail. It was still very generalized, in my opinion.
At speeds beyond physically possible. Is this why we have no theaters of war, or why it's delayed?
Sage.
How to put everyone from everywhere in one place without being a brokey, laggy slideshow for everyone. I'm truly curious as a fan of the game, and so should you. With all of what was said at the panels, with the layers of shards, the master server to perform persistence, etc., I'm still unconvinced that they have a solution for the latency issue. Don't think for one moment that I feel qualified as a game developer. I'm not, and I've never presented myself as such, but I don't have to be to ask this question. How can members from my org, Enemy Contact, play from all over the world on a single Javelin while fighting members from another org from all over the world on another? This problem and its root issue becomes doubly more important when you change the mix to include perhaps a third or fourth org in another cap ship. Will we even be able to see that third ship? I think so, and I'm going to explain a little bit later. Another possible strategy might be to simply call out some of the traffic from the servers. We and the others would then each be oblivious to our presence in that location. We can then go deeper and add the little fighters doing their little fighter stuff. We can add the little bombers doing the little...
Cap ship to cap ship play is so far away. Okay? Listen, I'm so geeked about this shit. Trust me, I fucking dream of this shit. This is why one of the major reasons I was in the project from the very get-go, like imagining being crewed on a large ship, being in charge of so many gamers in one place. It's a fantastic thing to think about. Your imagination goes wild. You're ready to fucking pledge instantly when you think about these promises that were given to us, but it's going to take a fucking long time. It's going to take a long time for this to happen. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think if anybody can make this shit work, it's the people at Cloud Imperium and Chris for sure. It's just going to take a long time, period.
Bomber stuff, will they be able to see each other and the other ships? Is their performance playable when trying to do space combat? Will they be called out or dumbed down somehow to improve performance? And then even more questions about the scouts, miners, cargo resupply, the randoms who are literally in the wrong place during a hypothetical giant space battle. If you'd believe, I'm still not done. Let's also add in Tony Z's 10-to-1 NPC traffic, the security patrols, the pirates, the aliens, and the plus. So you've been pitched about this great idea of a big hairball in space, this big battle, and you think I'm done with adding to the complexity of the scenario, but I'm not really done thinking wider yet. We're not even talking yet about how servers may handshake the shards, but for the purposes of the video, let's just park that one for a little bit later and possibly a follow-up video. So back to the basics of the hairball and why I feel that some of it is totally possible. Javelin 1 and Javelin 2 could each in theory be their own shard or set of shards, and the collective results of all of their activity of all of the people working on them could be represented simply as effects. The entire effect of the ship, weapons, shields, and attitude. The 70 or so people manning the turrets, fixing the damage, and driving the boat would look externally no different than a simple on-the-rails NPC asset. Simple. Hit points, weapon fire, shield strength. If you had two ships represented like this, they could fight, trading blows for blows, despite the lag issues due to the slow pace of the combat. So do I feel that this large-scale cap ship on cap ship battle is
ostentatious? Sorry to interrupt. I mean, I'm really into this. But ostentatious says Google the entangled web. I think what he's talking about is quantum physics, like quantum entanglement. Is that what you're talking about? The way in which particles react to one another, something of that effect. That's something that was written about a long time ago, actually, man. Like, that would be pretty fucking cool. Quantum physics. Fucking, you're getting quantum physics mode on me, ostentatious. I like that.
Possible? Yes. Which is good because there's supposed to be a level of persistence while it's crewed and a major part of the appeal of Star Citizen. A lot of money pledged into massive ships, so at least that seems possible. But let's go down into the gameplay. You could crew that ship with NPCs, but that wasn't the pitch and that wasn't the promise. On a smaller scale though, what I'm more worried about is the player crew on that ship. What would my experience be as a crew member? Would my time represent a good gaming experience when my crewmates may be running around with a ping of 400? How would those routine tasks be gamed? But more importantly, how would combat play out? That big shipboarding gameplay is a big part of the proposed scope. So what happens when a large group of enemy decide to breach my Javelin or Icarus? Let's say 40 of them are boarding on prowlers, which incidentally is part of that ship's concept literature and why some backers may have bought it. All of them running around with a ping of 300 or higher against a set of players with a ping of 300 or higher. Can that even be considered gameplay? How would that ever manifest as anything other than a slideshow? None of this is because the developers don't want to or aren't trying to achieve that playable experience. Aren't physics then the blocker? Hasn't that always been the problem? Isn't it physically not possible to just turn up the speed of light and make the gameplay better? I have one more layer to this onion. Large-scale 2 Javelin are each their own shard. No problem, with big questions, however, about the individual player experience. I was worried all the way back to Kickstarter. When Enemy Contact was created, the original members instituted a policy that its members could only ever physically be located in the continent of the United States. We knew this all the way back then. This was Canada, USA, and South America. We did that so that no matter what the performance would be, our ping, our latency, as we were working together, flying escort, running cargo, doing missions, hunting bounties, whatever we happened to be doing, we would have a good latency with each other. We would therefore have the best chance of having the better game experience despite whatever CIG was planning. Time passed, the org grew massively during a merger with Old Blood and Guts, and when combined, this new team was great, but that org was now a global team of members. Over the years, I had never seen any reports or heard anything from the developers to address this physics. They sometimes spoke about lag balancing, which is where low ping players have a delay added to them so that they can get closer to high lag players. All that means to me is that everyone is experiencing poor performance equally. What a garbage solution. Nobody really seems to be talking about it much more, but that really isn't the single whole universe that Chris promised, right? Where we're going now is little copies of the same universe, and that may be fine for the current limitations, but that's not at all what was pitched. Despite a common persistent economy, commodities, resources, and so on, which yes can all be calculated and copied into each version of the universe, where I would like your input on is where do we draw the line? The pitch, the single persistent universe without boundary. That was the pitch that started a $500 million ball rolling, and as I sit here reflecting on 10 years, do I think that they thought the technology would just be built by the time we needed it? Probably, and isn't that a tad fraudulent? Isn't selling something that you hope to own in the future a little bit sketchy? I feel we should discuss it or at least acknowledge that no matter how much money
Or I get where he's going with this, but I don't think they were thinking that it was just going to happen outside of the entity that is Chris and Cloud Imperium. I think they figured that they would be the people that would solve the problem. Don't you think really that is actually the goal here? Don't you think about the value of having something being able to do that? Think of the value of being able to conquer this issue. Think of the value for not just the gaming industry, but the entirety of the fucking net. Think about how valuable that would be. I mean, is that something so lofty to think that that's not what they're trying to do? I don't know, man. If you see Manchester and Frankfurt, and you see the rate at which Cloud Imperium's growing, I mean, might the end task also be not just the game, but to conquer this fucking problem? I think so. I think in order for Star Citizen to be successful, that's what they're going to have to do. As Noob is suggesting, if they don't, it could be one giant fucking lawsuit, because some people could claim, hey, this isn't what was promised, and then you're going to have a fucking domino effect. So I'm not of the camp of thinking that, this is the end result is not going to be anything less than what was promised. But yeah, up to that point, perhaps this is the way they're going to deal with the situation. But if that was the end product, that might be a bad situation if they don't offer what they promise. I think that's the whole point of why Benoît is the person now to rethink at least this portion of dynamic server meshing. But is dynamic server meshing in the definition of what dynamic server meshing does, a one giant persistent universe? It could be. But like Noob said, and we saw on CitizenCon, it is essentially copies of copies coexisting together. Can it give us the experience of one giant persistent world? Perhaps. Could it give us lower ping rates? Perhaps. There's a lot of fucking variables in this. It's not cut and dry. It's not black and white, and a lot of people lose interest and just walk away. But so I appreciate Noob's take on this, and I appreciate Noob taking the time to really put this out there and put a voice to it. I think that's pretty proper in my eye. Oh, Hammer! What's going on? God bless, man. Appreciate you, dude. 25, man. Thank you, bro.
King, you're under arrest.
That'll help. That's gonna go towards a new headset. Absolutely need it.
How do you feel? I feel fine, Dr. Norton.
STABILITAI.
No, Rhino, but I do know the amount of employees out there. I know that they've got to be throwing people at the problem. You know what I mean? Rhino says, and it's a good comment. Rhino says, if you think big publishers care about spending huge amounts of money on R&D for server tech, they won't. That's why nothing is really advanced. But if there was a payout at the end of that, and the risk was worth the reward, perhaps. I mean, with the amount of employees they have, you got to imagine that they've thrown some devs, some coders at this. You know what I mean? Some server engineers. You would imagine they've had to talk about this. This is a big hurdle. This is a big hurdle, dude. It's a big one. It's the number one problem. I've been saying it for a year and a half, 2 years now. This is the biggest problem. This is the biggest hurdle in the completion of the game. It really is.
You have, or how much you may want to do
exactly,
something,
Kev,
you
yes.
can't speed up life just by thinking positively about it. So we come to the end. What a downer, right? Everyone else seems to be making videos about how cool 317 is, and here's the Noobifier focusing on if any of that stuff even matters if the core gameplay is a lie. As I said, I love the game possibly more than most, and I want to play Chris's dream as much as everyone else. And I hope this video and any discussion that it creates results in some movement on this subject. I appreciate the support I get from you, my valuable community members. Videos like this mean nothing without you, and you're the most important part of that equation. Collectively, we're smarter, and I get so much from reading the comments that you post. Let's hope that 2022 is the year that everything seems to just get pushed into overdrive. Don't forget to look beyond.
Yeah, I mean, like 2021 was a huge year. I mean, 2021, a lot of shit got done. 2021 was very understated by a lot of people and underappreciated, but I appreciate the fuck out of what happened from Cloud Imperium in 2021, man. 2021 was a banger of a year in terms of production and progression. 2021 was a pretty fucking amazing year. So I'm hopefully like we're going to see like 2022 step it up too in regards to this. This is a huge issue. So I appreciate that. That's a good video. I'm going to give that a like. It's not usually noobs content, but I appreciate the direction and the fresh perspective on an issue that's been in my mind for a very long time. So, I like it. Keep it up, noob. Good stuff.